late, little technical difficulties. Brandon's internet seems to be acting up, so he's jumping on from his phone. But we got Brandon build. Oh, sorry, I was gonna say build term building wealth flow, and now we got Gus Feely joining us. Hey, so morning everyone, and there he goes again. All right, well, if he gets back on, we'll dig into it. But Gus, welcome, man. You warmed up yet or anything?
Yeah, man. I guess when here we go. Yeah, I'm warmed up. I'm happy to be on here with you and see where the discussion can go.
All right, cool. Well, we'll do our best. It seems like he is definitely having some internet troubles. But did you get a chance to kind of look over the topic we are going to touch on? It was initially based off a Ken McElroy video that Brandon watched. It was kind of talking about why a lot of people may fail. I think a lot of it was focused on liquidity. But did you get a chance to check out that video?
Yes, I did. Very good video. It's about 16 minutes long. He had a long list of stuff he covered. And I like the age range he took. He was able to go ahead and talk about the 30 to 50 range. Some of his guidelines to keep you out of trouble. In real estate, you want to stay out of real estate jail. So I did enjoy the video.
Hopefully we get Brandon's able to stick around a little bit and give us his thoughts. I know this was his idea, right? All right. Well, give us your best recap of the video and why you want to focus
Yeah,
on that.
because it actually sent me back to decades ago and some of the lessons I've learned, and then how this last time where I thought crisis was happening in 2020, how I was better prepared for it. And then I know, Mark, I write stuff for this. I take maybe a video and then I create my own thought to it and my own material on it from my own experiences.
All right. And I think like I said, sorry, I was trying to connect to the Instagram, but definitely, yeah, it's a very eye-opening video. I think a lot of people may not know, like Ken McElroy, he seems very successful now, but he definitely talked about a lot of struggles maybe in the beginning and why a lot of people fail or get out of real estate. So Gus, did that video, touch you or kind of relate to you in any way and where you're at in your journey right now?
Yeah, some of the things that he went on to go ahead and say is like, one of the biggest things is I'm just going by the seat of my pants. I just love the game like right now, and I guess what I don't have or I haven't created is a plan. What is enough? Where do I need to go? And I'm satisfied right now. I'm just thinking, since I'm all go, the more properties I'm able to take down, the more it makes sense to go ahead and obtain them. And from someone like him, I think he said, correct me if I'm wrong, he had like 100 million in real estate or $1,000, something along those lines. I know he's a big player in the game. I've seen him a lot of places. I think that makes sense. And I think I had a conversation with someone who's a business coach. They're telling me, hey, Gus, you've gotten this far, but what is the end goal? And I don't know what the end goal is. I'm just an investor. I'm just a hustler. I don't have the structure Brandon has. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm still trying to figure that out all out as I'm investing in real estate.
Before we move on, I just want to everyone go jump over to Brandon's channel. He should be streaming. I know he connected his channel, but go subscribe there, follow him. Brandon, I know there's some things you want to touch on. Before you get into that though, what did you get a chance to see Gus's most recent post also in school?
I
Have you had a
guess no,
chance?
I did
Okay.
not. I
Okay.
did
It
not.
actually kind of relates to this a little bit and kind of why he was kind of just touching on also maybe he doesn't have that end goal in mind yet. But yeah,
Okay.
well, what is the main focuses you want to touch on based on this Ken McElroy video?
You know, I I worked on just like a typical person presenting. I had three different key points, and I want to preface this from when I was young, married, and going through struggles, and remembering the tightness, and remembering those seasons, and I could hear it in Ken's voice when he was describing his seasons, you could tell he was thinking back. I remember '08 and '09, we had a family business that literally just died almost overnight. It was an industry that had been there for decades upon decades in the yellow page industry, and watched that die, and kind of that feeling of where do we go next. So what I put was the number one, and I made some of these alliterate. If you hopefully you'll like that. It's panic produces poor decisions. What we see is when we're kind of when our backs against the wall, we don't have reserves, we tend to do things that we don't necessarily, they're not the best decision, but we're having to make them out of sheer panic. Because that panic and desperation, you tend to make poor decisions because you haven't saved up that liquidity, and you don't have time to think. You've got to, I call it, you've got to react versus respond. Respond gives a time for pause, and you're thinking through the decisions. Reaction, when you don't have that liquidity, and I put liquidity gives you optionality and opportunity. But I've seen this happen when I was in banking, so I'm drawing upon decades of things I've seen. I've seen people sell good assets because they were so desperate they needed the money. That was the quickest way to access money, even though it was their engine that produced more. They were just desperate and trying to get cash as fast as possible. Or when you're in that panic and that desperation, you'll agree to terms. You might have somebody that takes advantage of you, or you just agree to terms that you might not have done when there's times of calmness. And I always say calm beats chaos. What's your thoughts, Gus? Have you thought of some things in the past?
Yeah, I think 100%. When you're panicking, you're not making a logical decision that you would if you were in a comfortable position. And especially in real estate, you see some of these properties, and then you get to the closing table and you see the amount of money that they made. What are they doing with that money? What are they putting that money towards because of them being panicked, and someone else is picking up on the benefits of, them panicking on that. So yes, that one thing I did watch on that video, and I don't know if I'm jumping a little bit, is the liquid part he spoke about.
I'm going to get into that. Yeah, that's another. I'm just kind of starting there, but you're right. We're going down the right path.
Yeah.
I'm just starting with, okay, we don't have liquidity,
Mhm.
and so we have less options, and of course very little opportunity. We're making decisions from desperation and panic. And I'm thinking back. I'm not condemning. I've been there. So I'm thinking through some of those times in my life and realizing some mistakes I made. And you and I and this group, we're trying to educate each other so that we're not there when the next big crisis happens. And so that's where I started, was that panic produces poor decisions. Then number two, preparation preserves prosperity.
Mm.
And so that's my number two, that we've got to realize that good times don't last forever. Same thing with lean times. They don't last forever. And I'm thinking back. So in '08 and '09, I learned that lesson. And so I went through the 2010s, and I began to start building up reserves. And I think of, and I know, Mark, you're going to hate me. I'm going to use some scripture here and some principles. But when Joseph was the steward of Egypt during the good times, he put back 1/5 of all the grain during the good times. And I think that principle can translate here. 1/5 is 20%. And he was putting back for lean times so that they got through the famine. And so when we're in these good times, they don't last forever. And that goes to that principle. We've got to put back money and live below our means. And so I use that 20% Joseph principle. And so I learned those lessons. And in 19 and 20, so 20 happens, or actually I'm going to wait. I'm going to save that story to the third point. but we've got to stockpile before the storms and the crisis happens. Gus?
Yeah, so that one resonates for me as a real estate agent. My first few years, I was making a good chunk of money, and my thinking was, this is not going to last forever. So what I need to go ahead and do, kind of what I hear Zuber do and a lot of guys in our community, we're taking that money and we're putting it into assets that are going to go ahead and produce passive income. But I came into investing with a nice nest, and I was prepared for what it takes to, someone be successful as far as an investor.
Yeah, and maybe I was in real estate sales from 2010 till 2024 and did that. And I remember watching the 2020, and so that date marks me. It was March 14th. I remember it like it was yesterday. That Friday evening is when everything shut down. But what we're doing is we're trying to prepare. And what I started doing was creating reserves in multiple ways so that I have multiple backups. So I wrote up several ways we can create reserves. For me, and y'all know I had a couple of small businesses. And so I created reserves in my business accounts that could cover multiple months of operations. And that took time. So wasn't just instantly. Over the years, because I was marked from '08 and '09, that situation, I said, okay, I'm not going to fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I'm going to learn this lesson. And I began building reserves in my business account. Then I also began building reserves in my personal accounts. And now all of us that have real estate, Gus, what you're talking about too, we're building up reserves. And I love Dion's description. I've used it in multiple teachings. That SWAN account, the sleep well at night, you're building up reserves there. I think there's one fourth piece, and I call it equity reserves. If you're over leveraged, you don't have reserves there. And that can cause crisis too. So I built up those reserves in all of those accounts. And even my banker even makes comments about it, that you've got a contingency plan upon a contingency plan. And that was really lessons I learned from '08 and '09, that I wanted not just one backup plan, but I wanted a backup to the backup to the backup plan, because it took all these years to build up these assets. I don't want to lose them.
No, you're right. And it's like layers of defense.
Yes.
With those assets. So even with me, and Mark kind of brought it up, I was talking about yesterday, I was just reviewing my business, where it's at. I'm in the Northeast. I'm up in the state of Maine. We got hit heavy with freeze ups, more fuel than what's normally used. So I'm looking at the numbers, and the numbers are a little bit, they're not a little bit, they're a good amount different than they were maybe 2-3 months ago. So now there's really no need to panic, because I've built up capital to, the layers that you're talking about. But once you see that little tweak, you start to panic a little bit, you know what I mean? And with that happening, so everything that you're saying right now, that resonates with me also.
So that's what I did through the 2010s. And when 2020 happened, of course, let's go back to that very moment. So let's live back March 14th. I don't know why I remember it, but I remember it specifically. I was at a meeting that late afternoon, and we were in a meeting for a couple of hours, and we all started getting email after email of thing after thing being shut down. And you're sitting there thinking, because no one had this experience. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is apocalyptic. I mean, it really felt it for a moment in time. And you're thinking, what are we going to do? And so I had plenty of liquidity. And what I will say is that liquidity gives you a long runway. It gives you time to make changes and to make better decisions. So the number 3 point is liquidity creates leverage. And I think leverage I'm talking about is time and money and opportunity. So you've got multiple leverages when you're liquid, and you have options. And I remember thinking, I sat on that weekend, I think it was Sunday after church. I sat down, I shut the door into my office at home, and I sat there and I put together all my liquid reserves, and I put together a plan, because this was the moment I felt like it was one of the most crisis things I've ever dealt with. And I've dealt with a few. I had to do layoffs at my Yellow Page company twice. So I had dealt with some pretty heavy duty crisis. This one was one, there wasn't a playbook out there. What do you do? And so everything was shut down, and I called a meeting with our organization. I'd sat down, I said, all right, I've got enough liquidity from the business, from my personal, from all my reserves. I can get us to July 1st. I could pay everyone's bills of salary. I could pay what I need. I can pay all the expenses. I've bought us time all the way to July. And that was going to be something I wanted to share with the team, because I wanted to give them, I wanted to take some panic away. So I went to that meeting on that Monday morning, and I'm a fighter. Have always been very competitive in sports, and fought. And I even told the team, I'm preparing to kind of, uh, it's called pattern reset. But I said, listen, if you want to participate in a recession, you can go ahead and leave right now. But I'm not participating. I'm going to fight. And if we go down, we're going to go down swinging. And I looked them dead in their eyes, and I meant it. I wasn't going to give up. I was going to fight. And I said, I've got us revenue all the way to July 1st. That's buying us time to figure out what's going to happen and what we're going to do. Well, as we all know, we made it through. For me, having a couple of small businesses, I had the PPP loan. Those things all came available, and it bought more liquidity. But what ended up happening, because I was so prepared for 2020, I created lots of opportunity. Not only did I buy time to not make decisions out of panic, I was actually fairly reasonably calm through it, and I made better decisions. But then I also realized inflation went up really high in late 2020, and I capitalized on it. And my first two big real estate purchases in 2020, I had the liquidity and everything going right because I was prepared. I created $1 million in wealth in less than 18 months off of two purchases, because I was prepped and ready. And that's what Zuber's doing right now. He's seeing some opportunities, so he's getting extremely liquid. But that liquidity gives you leverage, and it even buys you time. For me, having a business, and I know some people might not like this, but I think about it. When I have a business that I have employees doing work that I can do, it does create more leverage for me. If times of crisis really got to those final spots, I could do that job and save that expense. I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's the truth of us small business owners. That would be my last choice, but that's another leverage piece I have with a business. Is worst case, worst case, I can take over that role and save that expense.
That's a
So
great point. I think that's a great point also on the whole self-managing and having a property manager discussion too, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's another
it
point. Yeah, I hadn't
it
thought of it in that way.
it's I know some people absolutely don't want to self-manage, but I think you should actually be able to at least know how to do it and have systems in place to, like you're saying, if something did come to that situation
You
and
could
you
take it
needed to,
back over.
yeah. Before Gus, I know I want to kind of go a little bit back to the preparation preserves prosperity kind of thing. But so, like Gus, I know where you're kind of at in your maybe journey a little bit. Is it part of the struggle a little bit? Is you feeling holding large reserves are a drag on return in like strong markets?
uh so I don't want to say I'm panicking. No, so
Oh,
I do.
oh, yeah, not panic, but I think like people that are more in that growth phase or that hustle mentality, it's always that what kind of return can I
Mhm.
get in the market, right?
yeah. So for me myself, I'm looking for the cash flow and what can I can build as far as equity. When now I'm hearing some of the guys that have been doing it for so long, you know, if you keep doing it, wins enough. The more places you get, the more expenses are going to come up, and you don't know what those expenses are going to start to eat into your cash flow. Or the more buildings you have, the more options of something going wrong. So I don't know. I'm really just trying to figure it out. I know you brought up Cody yesterday, and when you made the reply, and I don't know 100% his story. I heard some of it. I don't know if I'm there. I'm just trying to figure it out. There hasn't been any issues or any problems. Um, I think at some point here soon, what I really need to do is talk to someone who's more of a position like me that's been in it 10, 15, 30 years, pick their brain a little bit more. Then I can maybe carve out a lane for myself to say, this is the way I need to go, and this is what I need to eliminate to make my life a lot easier. I know you brought up the gentleman, Dylan, I believe is no Dion.
Dion, yeah.
Yep. So maybe that's a opportunity for me to lock in with him, get some conversations, and start listening to him and see what I can take from him and implement in my business.
Yeah, so Dion, like I said, I think Dion and Coach Carson were the two that I mentioned. So like, Coach Carson has his book, The Small and Mighty Investor, where it's definitely about the time freedom and the small and mighty portfolio with less headaches. And even like Dion, his motto is kind of the least amount of doors with the most amount of cash flow, right? So kind of to allow him that freedom and kind of you got to know when you've won the game in a sense, right? And step away. But yeah, like I said, it's not, there's no wrong way. And I think, like I said, I love, you're grinding and you're hustling, and I love that. But when I look at you, I feel like I mean, I feel like there's a chip on your shoulder, and some of it is you're trying to keep going to prove something. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I get from it a little bit. Because when I look at it, I'm like, and I think if you were to have a better end goal in place and where you're at, or where you want it to be, like it would solve a lot of maybe the stresses and headaches. And of course, like you're saying, it just happens in the situation where you're at now, the weather and all that. But so it's not something you're always dealing with. But I thought it was a great post that you had, and that's why I wanted to chime in on that.
I also want to say this, and I respect what the point of view where you're coming from. But the sick part about it is I'll feel the way I was yesterday, and today I may get 3 rents, or I may get 3 under contracts that change your mind. It's the ebb and flow of this game that we're in. Now, can things be tightened up so there isn't a peak where then the next day you're dropping to a low? Yes. But I love the thrill of it. And when you say I have a chip on my shoulder, I think I do. It took me this long to get where I'm at now. And I wish I was able to be a Cody and be able to lock in and do it that early. I'm competitive. That's just my nature of the game. Everyone isn't competitive. So when you say you see a chip on someone's shoulder, I think there's more to the story to it, why that person has the chip on their shoulder. So that's how I would explain that.
And I think sometimes, the chip on the shoulder, I actually look for hires that I feel like have a chip on their shoulder, because there's something deep inside of them that keeps them focused and motivated. And then but I do think I had a chip on my shoulder. I really did. A few years ago, I had it. I would call it has gone away now, that I don't care as much what others think. I'm satisfied with who I am. I'm I'm done. I don't have to prove anything. I finally proved it to myself, and I'm now good. But I'm still motivated. But I had that too, and I think, Gus, I think chip on your shoulder, leveraged in the right way, is a great, powerful tool. But if it keeps you unsatisfied up to whenever you're ready to retire, I think somebody might miss a lot of joy and being able to be relaxed. It's trying to find that right balance, of the chip that keeps you motivated, but not over the top.
That totally makes sense. I think I think the one thing that I feel like I do, there are a good amount of people who look up to me and have seen the journey I've had. And I think what sometimes gets confused is the transparency I have to a degree. So when I do create a message where I'm speaking from the heart, I'm speaking honestly, here's where I'm at, it could be looking like it's doom and gloom where I'm at, but in actuality, it's just the feelings of a human. You know what I mean?
Right.
And especially being in this game, it's all not, you jump on social media, you see smiles and you see fancy things going on. There are times where you're reflecting, and I like to, when I'm on those points, I like to be able to go ahead and express that. And I think that's the missing piece that people tend to need to see a little bit more. But they also need to hear the structure from Brandon. They also need to hear the structure from Dion. They need to hear Zuber talk. They need to watch Mark's podcast. I think they all mix together to be able to go ahead and create a great investor at the end of the day.
And I think everybody, Gus, is wants that genuineness. And I think that's what you're saying. You're trying to be genuine with what your feelings are at the moment and what you're thinking about in the moment. And I think that resonates with people. It's a combination of all of it. Mark has known me a little bit longer, but I can be extremely passionate, and sometimes it gets me in trouble, but a lot of times it helps me. But I try to, in real estate, because you're in real estate, the too high of highs, but I think this can be any position, too high of highs and too low of lows can wear you out. And I'm trying to stay better at being more even in my emotions, because I know when let's just say my emotional feeler is at 10, my logic's at 1 or 0. And so I'm trying to keep, I want to keep the passion, I want to keep the feelings there. Maybe they're at 6, 6, 7. There you go, 6, 7. But I want to keep my logic, but I want to keep my logic at that 8, 9, 10, so that I don't let my feelings get ahead of logic, because I have done it too. But this is a great discussion. We want to be real, and I'm trying to be very systematized from my businesses to my real estate plan. I'm almost done. I'm on unit number 14, and I am done at 22. I've got the dirt to get to 18, so I've just got a few more to go, and then I plan to let that cash flow roll over and live off of it before I'm too old to enjoy. And I think of what Michael talks about, Zuber talks about going on those Viking cruises, which I'm very familiar with them. I saw them. And he said most of those people were in their 70s, 80s plus, and all they lived off of was regret. They didn't start enjoying it earlier, and that has really resonated, even though and I'm just turned 54, so Mark, be quiet. But I'm trying to live some of those experiences now, because I want to enjoy them with my kids, with down the road when they're married and their kids, be with the grandkids. I want to enjoy it now, and I've begun to do pieces of it, not as much as I think I can do in the next 5 years, but there is a comfort where I'm almost done. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I'm almost done. Probably at 57, I think I'll be fully retired and doing totally whatever what I want to do. Right now, I feel like the best description is semi-retired. I can do pretty much whatever. If I want to be in the office, if I don't, if I want to be gone for weeks, it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about it. But striving at, Gus, pardon me, ask, how age-wise, where are you at?
I'm 40.
Okay, so I understand that. 40, I had that drive that I think is healthy where you're at. I think easily in 5 to 10 years, you could be before me. You could be completely retired at 50. But if you did it at 45, that's awesome too. But 50, you've still got a long runway at 10 years. There's a lot that can be accomplished, a lot in 10 years. And you know that too.
Yeah. So, and that goes along with, that's why we're still building. I'll also say this, you know, the more rooms I get into, and then let's say I'm in the room with, I'm just going to use someone for example. We'll say Cody because he's quite popular in the community. I don't see myself relaxing being around someone, you know, who's doing the type of things that he's doing. You know, that's just how my pedigree is created. You know, he's building and building and building, but he's also executing and making sure his he's tightening it up what he has. But that's just going to get me more competitive, and not competitive in a bad way. So how I take being competitive is it's going to go ahead and put me in a space where I'm able to go ahead and build more and be successful. So I use my competitiveness for my own good, or my own good. People may not see it that way, but that's how I see it. I know that where I am right now with my family, my wife doesn't work. She's able to go ahead and take care of our kids since they've been born at home. Now my son is in pre-K right now. My daughter gets to stay home. We play. We have an hour throughout the day where we play. We're going on vacation, so we're knocking out some of these things that we tend to talk about that are important. But at the same time, I got to go ahead and put food on the table, and I don't think that's going to continue to stop. I'm not built to stop. I'm built to learn from my peers. Let me first and foremost say that. But I'm also built to be the best. And I don't know, I I don't know if that sounds how it's supposed to sound, but I'm not here to play second fiddle, or I'm here to be the best, especially if I get around people that are doing fairly well. That's contagious for me. And that's just how I'm built. That's my story.
Yasik wants to remind you the best opportunity to get in that room, Gus, is Vegas. So still time, he said.
It
But
is. You don't realize what you're missing, and I mean that. It's not just the speakers, because the speakers may suck.
yeah,
I may suck as a speaker, but it's the networking and that group that is even more valuable than the speakers. And legitimately, I mean that. As of my third year, yes, the speakers are good, but it's all the other pieces to it I think you would really appreciate.
My goal is I'm going to the Bigger Pockets one in October, and then next year I'll be at this one. So I'm definitely committed to making sure I'm there next year.
before I get to Harrison's question, I do want to just quickly add. So, like I did mention, Coach Carson. Even if you could just maybe read the first, it could be in the first chapter, I believe, but he talks about, and this is what at his presentation in Vegas, and I think what a lot of people took away from it, he talks about like three couples that are investing, and just to kind of quickly summarize it, like the first couple has very small paid off portfolio, enough cash flow to basically have a good life, a retired. The middle couple has a bigger portfolio, they're doing more things, and then the last couple has this huge portfolio. They're making the most money, but they're doing a lot more things, more operations going on, right? They're doing fix and flip, renovations, and they're all on a cruise. They're all having fun, and they all want to continue the cruise. And the first couple that has the smallest, most efficient portfolio was like, yeah, let's do this. We can keep doing this because our portfolio is paid off, it's taken care of. The middle couple had to kind of put some things in place. They were able to go on, maybe extend it a little bit more. But the final couple that on paper looks the most successful, that's making the most money, wasn't able to continue or go on the rest of the cruise because they had all these other pieces moving and operations going on, right? So I think that's like I said, Coach Carson, that's kind of the mentality of the small and mighty investor, and what is enough, right? And I think you even kind of touched on it. You're not really sure what the enough is yet, right? But Harrison does say, Gus, do you have a fear that someone else wants your lunch?
So I know what that means in slang, but I don't know what that person. I don't know what how they're saying it. So if they could explain that, I can answer it either way.
What does that mean in slang? I guess I don't know.
So in slang, that means someone, they're looking to take what you got.
Okay.
They're looking to be in your position, something along those lines. I'm looking at not to sound rude, but I'm looking to take other people's lunch. You know what I mean? I'm looking to be the best that I can be. I think that's just it. And just to talk about those three people, I don't, and I think he's probably saying that. I don't think there's a definitive answer of who's the best. Just because someone has their portfolio paid off and they're satisfied with $5,000, someone who may have more debt and they're bringing in $50,000, that $50,000 may be what they want and how they want to go ahead and live their life. So I don't ever think there's one definitive answer. I think it's about who the person is. Is there a room of opportunity? I mean, is there a situation where the person with more debt may fall into some hard times? Yeah, but you got to live life, you know, and that may not be the popular thing to say, but I'm rolling the dice as far as how I'm living. And is that what pushes you? Exactly, Gus. Is that what pushes you? 100%. Like I said, I'm competitive. Brandon said it himself. When you're competitive, that's just what it is. You know, there's good that comes along with it and there's bad that comes along with it. Where I'm at right now, I'm seeing a lot of good. Can bad eventually creep up? Hey, it may. But that's how I live life. And that's how I'm going to continue to live life. I do want to, now to revert back, I do want to ask Brandon a question. So when you were getting prepared, when COVID hit and things start to shut down, and you said, hey, I sat down, I had time on my hands because we built a good business. So I knew until, I believe you said July 1st, I was able to,
so that was March 14th all the way to July 1st. Yeah.
I was able to go ahead and have enough reserves that we can make it to there. Let's carve out a plan to get where we need to be. I think that's how everyone should be doing shit. You know what I mean? Because if you prepare for worst case scenario, when things start to go your way, when you talked about getting the PPP loans, when you talked about things inflating because when COVID happened, prices went crazy. You had this bank that was ready, and then money started just going more and more on that bank, and that's when you were able to go ahead and make that $1 million. So that right there, for me, is how I go ahead and approach things. I want to go ahead and look at things at worst case scenario. Hey, you know, there's worst case scenario. We may lose 5,000 this month as far as freeze ups and as far as other examples of things in the winter that happen. But if they don't happen, that month, that $5,000 is going to be in my pocket. And I was prepared and I put myself in a situation to be able to go ahead and take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I knew that runway would extend. I was looking at the very moment I had the runway, and it wasn't like it was 5,000 a month. Y'all understand that. I had businesses that I was about to fund out of my own pocket. So I said, okay, I've got enough to July 1st, but there's going to be other things that happen that extend that runway. And what ended up in that runway got extended for a long time, and actually I didn't need that cash, and I deployed some of that cash for opportunities that, I mean, it was not as much as you would think. Literally only tens of thousands of dollars I turned into $1 million in wealth. It wasn't even $100,000 I turned into $1 million wealth, because I deployed it strategically. I was prepared. The banks were confident in what I was doing and all my plans. And I think of those like what Michael's doing right now, some of the great people stories you hear, that they make their wealth when others are panicked. They see the opportunities, and I just did it on a limited extent, but I'm like, I want to be ready even for the next one too. Just having all those stores there, and going back to what I've mentioned before, best practice, and I'm a big believer in best practices. When we would look and study everybody's personal financial statements, because that's what I used to do for the bank, best practice is to be at least at 10% cash or cash equivalents. They can weather a lot of storms. If you're looking at your wealth and you've got 10% in cash and cash equivalents that you can easily access with no penalties, the ideal That's best practice. The ideal liquid is 15%, but still making it productive. That's the challenge you've got to do, even in that liquidity, is finding something where you're at least staying up with inflation. And that's what I try to do with all my liquid reserves, is I try to at least hold the line with CPI or just above it.
I just want to also say, Brandon, Luke Howard from your channel is saying, I sure hope Brandon keeps making YouTube videos after he retires.
I plan to, because this is for Luke. I know this is not my nephew, but I've talked to you. My other Luke is listening too periodically. I'm doing this for this Gen Z group and for the group that I'm influencing. I will never make money on my YouTube channel. That's not my purpose. If the Lord so allows, so be it. But I'm doing this to share what I've learned, the mistakes I've made, and I plan to share even that journey into retirement here in the next few years and what that looks like. So hopefully I'll have some good stories then.
Josh Burdick says, that's awesome. Sounds like Gus has family priorities dialed in. Having my wife at home has been huge for our family. Where did I want to go with on this talking liquidity? There was one.
So, Mark, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
So how Zuber was able to create his portfolio? What's your opinion on that?
What do you mean? How he created his portfolio?
Like how he built his real estate empire? Because I know he has quite a bit of doors.
Well, I think so. To kind of what we're speaking on, to liquidity gives you optionality. I mean, that's he also, like, so going back to, everybody's talking about the Ryan Pineda video and Brian Davila and Zuber. I think the one thing people maybe were surprised about was what his W-2 income was bringing in, right? So that's the first place that maybe some people were like, if I knew he was making that much, maybe I wouldn't have related to him as much when I started following his YouTube channel, just because I can't relate to making 400,000 a year. But I think his message, and the other point I brought up was, but it could have been easy for him not to even get into real estate if you're making $400,000 from your W-2, right? And that was part of his struggle too, was that he was spending just as much as he was bringing in,
Yes.
and that's kind of why. And then he lost a lot in the stock market, and then that's why he looked towards real estate. And then as far as, and then another thing people would bring up is that, anybody could have made money in 2008 and 2011, things like that. But like he said too, is right. A lot of, and you're seeing it today, right? A lot of people are afraid of even doing anything based on where the economy might be, right? So yeah, he took advantage of it, but he also was making moves when a lot of people were sitting on the sidelines, just some being scared in a sense, right? And then he kept leveraging it and being smart about his moves on having liquidity to be optionality, right? But then the other point that people would push back on that video is that, why am I going to listen to this guy when he hasn't bought anything in 2 years, basically, right? Why am I going to listen to this guy's message when he's not even doing it anymore? And to his point, he's like, I've won the game. Why do I need to continue when I've already won the game, right?
And I would think them minimizing the challenges he had, it's so easy to go back and say, oh man, it was easy 10 years ago, 20 years ago. There were challenges then of getting lending. It wasn't just like it was handed to everyone that bought back then. There's challenges every year. He just succeeded with the challenges he had. He lived in a high expense area in Silicon Valley. He made the choice to live beneath his means, way beneath. I think he cut it by 50%. And so I can imagine what that looked like even in that high expense area. He made the tough decisions of living, if you want to call it austere. And I could tell it really irritated him, as it would anybody that says, oh, it was easy for you, because he knows he made sacrifices and then made smart moves, just like anybody else has that opportunity to live beneath your means. That's the only people that are getting ahead, is making the choice to live beneath your means, whether it's 100,000 or $1 million. Living beneath your means, you can get ahead. And I could.
Oh, we lost them. Well, I'll add
We
in a
did.
little bit more about, Zuber. I think you're talking about his growth or his journey. And if you talk to him, and of course it's hindsight, but if you talk to him now, it's like, my ideal portfolio is 20 single family homes, relatively on the newer side, relatively low leverage, right? I mean, that would be his ideal portfolio now for for a certain lifestyle, right? So I mean, of course he has a much bigger portfolio and he's scaled, but when he looks back on it, it's like, did I need to do this? He regrets some of the time also from, maybe he put his family on the back burner, right? Maybe he didn't do certain things. Maybe they sacrificed too much, right? Maybe they didn't do as many family things. What if he, you know, what if he took 2 to 3 years longer to reach his maybe financial number, right? And he wouldn't have these certain, maybe looking back on where he would change certain things, right? So there's, like you're saying, there's no ideal, and it's always hindsight with him looking back on it. But it's kind of like, you know, he would probably do certain things differently looking back on it. But at the same time, I'm sure he's happy where he's at, right? He has no, yeah.
That was going to be my question. Is he happy now? And, from the podcast I was able to watch, he's very happy. And for him to give his hindsight, this is what I would do to be who he is now. He had to go through what he was back then. And the thing is, he went on and and he took advantage of a situation and he came out winning. And to me, that's what resonates to myself. And that's why in this short period of time, I'm thinking the same exact thing, especially in these last 2 years. Everyone's scared. Everyone right now is scared to invest because the interest rates are here. I'm going to grab as much as possible and I'm going to see how this plans out. Now, as time goes on and I understand, maybe if I talk to Brandon on the side, how he can help me, really dive into the numbers and make it more beneficial for me down the line, so I know what my end goal is. That's something I could do down the line. But what I got to do right now is capture as many properties as possible for down the line to even happen. And when Zuber's story, that's why I wanted to ask you that question. I don't think there was nothing wrong with that. I think that inspires people to go ahead and go for the gusto. And I'm one of the people that go, and I don't got the most properties. So let me go ahead and say that. But what I do is, for me, myself, I don't want to leave nothing on the table. I was never poor, but I've been in situations I didn't have money. And to think about that is why I continue to go the way I go. So for some people, they may not resonate to that. They may have always been in a good situation their whole life, or they've been structured since they were small. I'm doing it for a whole different reason. And some people are going to understand it and some people are not. Wake up, guys. We're getting emotional. Let's go.
Yeah. I can't hear you, Mark.
Flavio said, did you folks feel stuck at one point? I think everybody does. I think
Yeah,
everyone,
there's been times I don't feel it. I don't feel it now, but there's been times, but I think for mine was about a decade ago where I felt stuck. I was pretty driven. Gus, like you, I was very driven. I wanted to make the 1,000 list. Are you familiar with that in real estate? There
No,
is
I'm
a
not.
list of see, you got to know what you're competing against. I looked at the top 1,000 in the entire country and I said, I want to be one of the 1% of the 1%. And so I started measuring myself against the top 1,000. I didn't quite make it. It was based off transactions. The top 500 on transactions. I was actually in the top 600 in the nation in transactions in real estate. And I tried
Nice.
to measure myself against that, which there was roughly at that time about 1 million teams or agents to be the 1% of the 1% is the top 1,000. And that's what I built a team that was our goal. I was very competitive, but I think now I'm past that season in my life, but I was in that season at your age. So I get it. I was in that season. Now, I think right now my best descriptor is I'm content. I genuinely, if 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 I lost it all, I'm content. I'm just a steward of it. I think I've protected it and done right for my family, but that's just where I'm at right now. I'm very content. Even if it were to end today, be okay with it.
No, and me myself, I respect that at the highest regard. And one day, it could be 5 years from now, it could be tomorrow. I'm gonna be in where what how you I'm gonna be saying the same things that you're saying. I
Yeah,
just don't think
because that's
as
what I'm
of right
saying.
now.
I'm there with you,
Yeah.
Gus. So don't be defensive. I'm there. I was there.
Chris
As
Webb
far
is
as
okay, go
as
ahead.
far as Javier's question, um, the time I was stuck was I felt like when I was working for Bank of America and I wasn't getting the opportunities. I felt, I was putting the work in for. I applied for a position 3 times, and they told me no. And at some point, this isn't working. They're telling me, Gus, stay around. You got a bright future with the company. And I was like, okay, then why am I not getting the position? You know what I mean? So I had to go outside of the office. I had to talk to people. And then that's when, becoming a real estate agent became an option. I felt stuck for 2.5 years at that company. But then I betted on myself. And by the grace of God, I'm here with 2 superstars on this podcast talking about real estate, something I love. So I appreciate it.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
You
Chris,
obviously don't know me well, and you don't know
Chris,
him.
Brandon said he prays for me every day.
I do. I do.
Chris Webb, who once again I'm going to call out for flaking on Vegas, who he bought his tickets and he's not going to go now, but he says absolutely. That is time in between each acquisition. We generally need to shift our mindset to stabilizing, but we only hear about growth, meaning acquisition.
That's a good thought.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
actually very good. We do
this is
need to focus on the stabilization too.
yeah, this is Ray. He said real conversations about why we're doing all of this in the first place, not just moving pieces around for the sake of moving pieces, but actually talking purpose, direction, and what it all means. Yep, I love this one. Absolutely.
And I'm going to share, you're going to hear that in some of my speech. Not all of it, but there's a piece of that in this my presentation.
Chris Webb also added there are no viral videos on waiting and maintaining for the income to double the mortgage like my Florida rental. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Yep, absolutely. Let's see. Anything else? I mean, I got some more. Unless you guys want to talk about something real quick. Um, would you guys say is patience becoming the new buzzword for sitting on the sidelines, though?
I used the term with Zuber the other day, patient capital. I don't know. I don't know that answer, but I do think there is a group that wants a deal or a certain number of deals every year, whether they're good or not. And I think what I teach and I do I like what Michael Zuber talks about is waiting for good deals. And I call it patient capital ready to strike. And I think Michael's living it out. He's getting that capital ready to pounce, but only for a great deal. And if not, he's not gonna deploy it.
Gus, any thoughts on that? Patient being the buzzword for sitting on the sidelines.
Mm, I guess it depends where, are you trying to buy your first property and you've been patient for 10 years? Then yeah, but are you being patient for looking for the right opportunity, like Brandon just brought up? Yeah, I think there's different ways to go ahead and look at it. And I have no problem taking your time and taking your time to be able to execute and buy something that's going to go ahead and, be not overbearing and still get you great returns. I'm all for that at the end of the day. I just think everyone just has different journeys as far as how they go about things. And what I can speak to is how I go about my journey. So, no, I don't think, unless you're sitting on the sidelines for 5, 10 years and you've been watching this podcast for 10 years and you haven't brought your first property, you gotta get off the stoop. It's about that time.
I just want to reply to Victor Wolf 8157. Yes, I still have some free 1 month memberships in school, so message me on Instagram or Facebook. So just to recap that, one of the individuals that won, I believe it was second place in our One Rental at a Time Fantasy Football League, decided to donate their winnings from the league. So we have about 5 more free 1 month opportunities in school. So just message me or find me on social media, and we can figure out how to refund you the amount after you join. Let's see. Flavio is saying, I like to be around you folks. You're all an inspiration in school. No, Flavio, you are a ninja. I keep telling you, you're a sleeper. A lot of people don't realize
Yes.
all the stuff Flavio is doing, but he likes to be in the background. But Flavio is doing a lot of cool stuff. He's even working on the black ORAT shirts that will be available. So if you need to get your order in, message Flavio and he'll figure out how to get you one. I see Ryan Ruff here, who's going to be also speaking with his wife on, I forget which day they're speaking at the ORAT event, but he says, have a clear vision and run your own race. Yeah,
and that's why the beauty of real estate, it is so personal. There's no one answer to everything. You have to know more information to give the best counsel for a person, because what might be right for one might be wrong for somebody else, and that's part of the beauty of the discussion.
I have
do want
no
to say,
idea what this means, Gus, or Trade Better's question.
I don't even know who Trey Better is, but
That's Harrison. Harrison's in Virginia, but he says, "Was that
okay.
a stupid kid reference? What the hell?" I don't know.
I do want to say, every time I see Fabi on the Zoom calls, he's always working at a property or at a site. So that tells me, and he's always on, these podcasts and other podcasts asking questions. So that tells me he has a hunger for learning and he's really putting in the work behind the scenes. So what you said, Mark, as far as a lot of things he's doing, I said that to someone else the other day. I was like, I gotta know what this guy Favi is doing, because he's always around, he's always listening, and when you do see him, he's working. That tells me a lot, even in a small glimpse of what I'm seeing.
Yep. I tell everyone, Flavio is a ninja. He's a sleeper, and people don't know what he's doing. He likes to come off as someone that doesn't know anything, but I guarantee you, Flavio is a very knowledgeable individual. I think honestly though, for him, it is maybe his English is not very well, so I think that's his confidence level, where sometimes maybe he doesn't like to chime in on something or give a response about. I think that's, and hopefully he gets over that, because like I said, he has a lot of knowledge to share, I'm sure.
I think that just makes it even better.
Yeah.
My dad came from across seas. Didn't know one word. Well, he knew words of English, but he had such a strong accent. And everyone made fun of him, clowned him, things along those lines. I think that gives a lot of, a lot of confidence to build, because you have to overcome so much just with language barriers. So, I think Fabi, just my small interactions with him, he's been killing it.
Charles McCune is asking, how would you dollar cost average with real estate?
Well, I think if you're purchasing one every year, one every 2 years, that's sort of the principle. Because let's just take because I haven't been into buying real estate that long, but if you take Michael Zuber, who's been in it 20, 25 years, things that he bought 20 years ago have a different price or a cost for what he bought to where he's buying even like here soon or from a couple of years ago. That's what I think of in dollar cost averaging with real estate.
Gus, you have an answer or a thought on that, or
No, I don't got an answer.
uh,
I'm just being nice.
mine would kind of be you're just always looking for a deal. You're buying in a up market, you're buying in a down market, you're buying when interest rates are high, you're buying when interest rates are low, but you're constantly stacking your assets. So it doesn't really matter what the market looks like. If you find a deal, you're going to buy the deal, or if you find something that your numbers work, you're going to buy it, and that's kind of what it is. So you're constantly stacking your assets. So that's how I would look at it as far as like a kind of a dollar cost average kind of method in real estate. So you're not waiting for a certain type of market where you're going to succeed in, right? It's just whatever the
Right,
market's at, and
right.
you find something that works, and you're just going to acquire it, right? Steven from the Bronx, who's sending me a FDNY shirt. I told him I wanted a smaller, so I get a fitted version though. But he says the one thing that I noticed about waiting for that good deal is that you start to become impatient and just want to get anything, and that would definitely lead to a bad deal. That's a great point. Any thoughts
Good
on that,
point.
Gus?
I think I've purchased one or two things that I technically, if I'm being transparent, I didn't really need to purchase. I think when you start, for me, I started having crews. Uh, Gus is it, Gus. He's hiding from someone. He's talking about Favi. Um, I think when you have crews and you're trying to stay busy, because I don't want to lose my crew pretty much. And so I brought a single family house. I technically didn't need to buy, but it was my bridge from that to another project I was working on. That was a full gut job. This was more of a cosmetic job on this property. So did I pay a little bit more? Yes, but I was able to get the rents. I think I cash flow about 400 on it. 400 as a single family home. Not my ideal thing. When that time does come to sell something, that will be the first property I sell. But yes, I think what Steven says can be a realistic thing. I think this year I haven't purchased anything yet, which is a good thing. I'm hoping not to purchase anything. I hope all good deals stay away from me until probably after June, July, so I'm able to regroup, refi, get some things done, and I'm ready to dive back into the pool.
Brandon, any thoughts on Steven from the Bronx's question or comment?
No, I do. I think people naturally get impatient, but I also think of the principle if you compromise once, you'll compromise again. And that those can be costly errors. I had this situation happen just a couple of months ago. I had an opportunity presented to me and I looked at it, I evaluated. It was a friend that presented it, so I spent a little bit of time on it, even though it was outside of my build to rent model. I was open to it only if it would have been an amazing deal. And it was a good deal, but it wasn't mine to hand off. So I couldn't call somebody else and say, "Hey, you go buy it." It was somebody else bring it to me. It was a good deal, and I said no because it wasn't my focus. And that's, I mean, it was a 9% cash on cash return with about 15% equity. And there was a little few more unknowns than what I do. That would be for a lot of people, that'd be a pretty good deal. And I happily, or not happily, I easily said no. I stayed focused on where I'm at and what I'm doing with the build to rent. And and I shared that I think in the school community that I think I wrote it up as one yes is defended by a thousand no's. I said yes to build to rent. That's my model. It would take a beyond, I call them a once in a decade type of deal, I might say yes to. But it was a good deal. It wasn't a great deal for what I'm doing. And I said, you know what? If I buy that deal, that means I can't go buy this other build to rent where I'm doing even better. So I'm going to pass on a good deal. because I was staying focused with what I do.
Yeah, Josh is just saying you can dollar cost average in fractional real estate. Yep. So I mean, that's something people can look into. Zuber, yeah, I gotta get back with Joseph Cachapalia about our fractional real estate Fridays. But Zuber's been talking to Real Bricks, who is a fractional real estate company. So if other people want to slowly get into real estate, that's one way to do it. Before I did want to wrap up soon, but Brandon mentioned one of his posts in school, and he's also trying to take credit for one of the comments on the Zuber video about someone mentioned.
I didn't know he said it. I just said it too. I didn't know.
So Gus, what is your thoughts on that? The Zuber, the Pineda video, but someone's comment was the individual Brian does not have 10 years of experience. He has 1 year of experience 10 times.
100%. 100%. No person with 10 years experience is talking like that. And there was times Zuber asked him questions. Are you writing disrespectful offers? Are you doing this? You doing that? And he was saying, yeah. And I was like, none of this makes sense. And even that, he was talking about, he did like 8 things in that short period of time. So he didn't master any. It was quite dreadful listening to him talk for that full 2 hours. Ryan, I think Ryan's just good at stirring the pot, I would say, and being on this side. Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say that.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say it.
Hey, like I said, if I had hair, I'd be coloring it red and pink and all that for my viewership too. But I don't have hair, so I can't do that.
But it was a very hard podcast to listen, and I think if Zuber was not being so reserved, I think it would have even been better, because he would have really chewed up that guy Brian for the nonsense and BS he was saying on that podcast. He should be ashamed. If he has a community, I don't know what he does, he should be ashamed of himself for saying those things.
That's the sad thing is he coaches people on buying real estate.
He needs to stay the fuck away. That's the truth. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or whatnot, but that's how I feel. I don't know him, so it is what it is.
Well, that was another comment that was on one of those videos where they're trying to say that you can't, or real estate doesn't work or whatever, and then right after that an ad pops up for them like, hey, join our course on how to make money in real estate. Someone's like, what the hell? But Chris Webb is saying he's trying to take credit for that comment too. He said I said that too, Brandon, and Mark stole it. So
hey, listen, I have said that exact type of statement for more than 2 decades, so I have used it, and you can verify that from my own wife in Vegas. I have used that statement for years.
And Ryan Ruff says the best deal I ever made was the one I didn't buy.
That makes sense.
Yep. And him and his wife will be speaking, like I said, so check them out in Vegas. Yes, and Lynn, who has a recent video out on her channel, so go and she and her Jack and Sarah Garrett, who spoke in year 2, they also did a recap video on the Zuber video, so go check their video out on their channels. But Lynn is saying, isn't Brian coming to the ORAD event? Possibly. I know he was there last year, I believe, because I believe
he was?
Well, not just he. So Pineda's I guess stuff is in Vegas, like his business or his main hub or whatever. So a lot of his people go to the event because it's in the area, and so I believe Brian Davila was there last year.
He came, was it 2 years ago? I didn't think of last year unless I heard that wrong. I thought he was at a couple of days before the get together, and he showed up late.
Yeah, so year
I
one,
heard all about it.
Yeah, year one, Pineda. So like I said, Pineda's facility is in Vegas, and I guess he reached out to Zuber, and because they were collaborating on some stuff back then, and he told Zuber, hey, my facility will be open. Why don't you just come on like Friday, have a little get together kind of thing. You're like a pre-event stuff. You can have it here. So anyways, there was like a meet and greet at his thing Friday night. Not everyone went. I mean, but maybe people that were already in town before the event went to the meetup, and Pineda showed up like hour half, 2 hours late because he was golfing. And he comes in and he really just didn't read the room, or his message that he was talking about really didn't relate to a lot of the community. He was really about like the wholesaling and entrepreneurship, and yeah, just didn't really understand who was in the room, kind of thing. And I think it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And just after this video now, I think even more so, it just kind of reinforces. And a lot of people are questioning, kind of like Zuber, like, why are you collaborating with these individuals? Like, so a lot of people are kind of like, man, I don't see you by the end of this year, Zuber, collaborating with some of these people that you have been recently. So I don't know, we'll see.
But if he has good relationships with them and they just see, differently on real estate, I think it creates, because we're still talking about it, you know what I mean? I think it created good content to have. And this isn't the only place I've been talking about it. I've been talking about it in other Zooms. That podcast has resonated with some people, where I've heard people on Ryan's side saying, hey, you can't really make money as far as investing, even though I think that's crazy. They're like, hey, you need to make active money at a high clip for real estate to even make sense as far as on the investing side. To me, that's all nonsense and BS. But I think what it does, when you throw content out there that has different opinions, I think it opens for discussions for the audience to hear different points of views, so they're more informed of what direction they want to go in. And especially the newbies. The newbies need to hear different things, because there could be a newbie that may want to be an investor, but they actually would be better as a wholesaler. So I think it created a good avenue for conversations.
Yeah, so Lynn is saying, yeah, Brian, I think he was in the podcast room with Millennial Mike, so they did do a recording. So like, he was at the event last year. Charles is
Didn't
saying
realize
bye.
that.
Yeah. Oh, and I did forget to mention, Lynn does have a new video out, so go check that out. I think she just completed one of her Burr projects, so she talks about the numbers a little bit, and I believe how much she got out of the refinance portion of it. So go check that out if you want to see some of the numbers that she's doing. Yeah, accidental landlord does say yes, the podcast was painful, but like to Gus's point, some people related to it, right? Like you're saying, it's some people not took Ryan's side, but can see from Ryan's viewpoint. I think the biggest thing for me was just that it's fine for Brian, because I think a lot of people are struggling right now in real estate, but I just didn't like the whininess of Brian. Like, no more, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of complaining. It felt like you can be struggling, and you can be maybe not getting the results that you expected or wanted, but it just felt like, yeah, a lot of whininess.
Well, I
and
think he
complaining.
wanted to whine, but he sure didn't want to hear from Zuber.
Yeah.
He didn't want to hear something from Zuber, because Zuber could have probably taught him something.
And maybe we'll wrap it up on that. So that was one of the comments also, was that people were like, I don't know if people watched the Alex Hormozy, Tony Robbins video recently, where basically Hormozy went into this interview so Hormozy was interviewing Tony Robbins, but it almost was like a coaching. He said, you know what, I get a chance to interview you, I'm going to turn this for like a coaching experience where you can give me advice on myself or my business. And that's how he took the interview. And someone's comment was kind of like, these two individuals should have possibly maybe used this sit down as a chance to maybe learn something, or take it as a learning experience instead of just a time to complain and whine about things. And yeah.
Now, I want to ask this question. Do you think that was created that way? Or do you think Zuber just showed up and, because I think I saw he was on with someone, he was saying that he thought he was going to talk about 2026 and it became what it became. Do you think those other two guys had intentions of that happening and the podcast coming that way? Because he was I've seen a few of that guy Brian stuff. He was a little more pouty on that podcast than I normally see him. So do you think it was some reaching?
You want to comment, Brandon, or?
Man, you can't be. You got to speak up.
No, I'm going to let him say his first. But
I thought you were asking Mark. I don't know if it was a setup or not. It's hard to know, but it sure seemed like Pineda and him were kind of on the same page,
Yes.
and Zuber was, I would call it blindsided a little bit. So that's just what
Yes.
it felt like.
I would agree
100,
with that. Yeah, and I think
100%.
a lot of people did comment that also is they just, and then that's also why I think a lot of people didn't watch past the first 5 to 10 minutes. They felt like it was like an ambush, like it was a setup, and they could already tell from the beginning that was like Zuber went there for something, and these two other individuals were just like they had just kind of planned in a sense, right? And they're just like, I'm not watching this kind of thing.
I call it
So
they had the meeting before the meeting.
yeah, yeah,
The one of the reasons I say that, so how I first saw, one of the reasons I knew about Zuber is I saw one of his interviews with Brian, and then I was like, okay, I like this guy Zuber stuff. And then I saw his interview with Ryan. So those were two solid interviews. So what I think what happened was, okay, he gave us how real estate is good. Let's come together. Me and him are talking. Let's figure out how we can crap on real estate and have Zuber in in a uncomfortable position. That's how I took it. I'm going to be transparent with the people that are watching it. I think it was a setup, and I think Zuber did a phenomenal job. He didn't lose his cool. He definitely could have walked Brian down very easily and exposed that he doesn't know anything that he's talking about. But once again, it was good TV, and I watched all 2 hours of it.
Did y'all watch? It came out last night, the interview with Michael and Tom McKay.
No,
That
I
was a
didn't catch
little bit of that was pretty interesting too, and a little bit of a
yeah.
philosophy clash.
Well,
But it was
Tom
still,
McKay is an OG. He's older than you. He's been in it
yeah,
a lot longer than
he's
you.
old. Don't, he's older than me, but it was definitely a philosophy clash even there last night. But it was still very respectful of each other.
Yeah, and it was painful because when Tom, so they live streamed it yesterday. So I actually saw
Yeah, I
Tom.
wasn't
So
on, but I saw
yeah,
it last night.
so Tom actually did a video
Reaction
review
video.
reaction on the original Zuber video, and then he also commented on Zuber's daily financial where Zuber was talking about it. And then I heard Tom McKay mention that he was going to collaborate with Zuber. So. Anyways, they did a live stream yesterday, and watching Tom try to set up his internet was like Brandon today. It was like this old dude trying
Hey,
to.
this is unusual today. What happened?
No. But if people don't know, Tom McKay is Flip Anything USA. I believe I heard him mention though that his YouTube channel has been shut down for now, so I'm not sure if it's back
Oh,
up.
wow.
Huh.
But anyways, he's an OG that's been doing it from the early '80s, I believe, and his thing is flip anything. Like he'll buy anything. He'll buy cars. He'll buy land. He'll flip anything. So the basically their discussion is long term, I think, buy and hold or flipping was the better option.
Right,
So
right.
that was kind of the discussion. I think a lot of people felt like it was almost a sales pitch for Tom to promote his coaching. I think a lot of people had a hard because Tom is all over the place. He brought up his Google Maps and he's talking about this property he bought, that and that and that, and
I sensed a little bit
it
of
was
that.
yeah, it was hard to follow, and and then every time Zuber would ask him something, he would be like, "Well, I can't say that because I can't give that information away. Like it's from my students, kind of thing." So I don't know how much useful information he put out because a lot of stuff he wouldn't answer because he was like, "It's for my students." But as far as I feel Tom is super knowledgeable. It's just he does have a course, and he it seemed like he was promoting that quite a bit.
Oh, Mark, on a this will be my last question. On a podcast sense, as a host, do you normally put together situations to make it attractive for the viewers out there?
I try to come up with interesting topics. As much as possible, but I do know people's personalities that some may fit well with others. But yeah, but I think a lot of it just so happened, we were going to talk about this topic, and then you had that post, and I thought it related well to kind of the topic also of optionality, kind of where you're at in the journey, and yeah, I thought it just related well, and like I said, I mean, I you know, like Brandon's saying, right? You know,
He was
you
hoping we'd have a knockdown drag out, Gus.
I smelled it a mile away.
no, 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 no,
But
no,
no, but it's
no,
all good.
no.
This is a great way, you know, different people seeing things from different points of views. Like I said before, that makes the best podcast. That makes the best TV, and then people can go ahead and choose who they want to go ahead and listen to. So you're
Well,
doing a
I
phenomenal
want to
job, man.
clarify though that in no way am I saying that Gus is doing anything wrong. There's no way that I started my reply in that post that I love the grind, that like that type of mentality, right? I love that. And I think it, like for me, it was more just coming from the viewpoint of, I think if you were to look at it, you are way more successful than maybe you think you are. I don't know. That's just from where I'm sitting. I think like if you were to step back and look at what you've accomplished, it would be like, oh shit, man, like I have I have a lot. I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm sitting. And it's not to say not to keep doing stuff, but like I think earlier in this discussion, you were like, if 3 deals came up, right? Like almost like I'm gonna take down the 3 deals, right? And it's almost like, so even like Cody was talking to Zuber on a recording a few weeks ago, and Cody was talking about this deal that came across, and he was sending it Zuber's way, but Cody said no, right? And then Zuber's like, man, 2 years ago, the Cody I knew would have just figured out a way to take this deal down, just to take it down, right? But where Cody's at now is like, I don't necessarily need that, right? It's so I mean, and like I said, there's no way. I mean, I love what you're doing. I think, like I said, you're amazing. I love having you on, and like I said, I love your everything that you're doing. It's just, I think, and like I said, this is just my view from where I'm sitting. I feel like if you were to step back, you'd be like, shit, man, like I am kicking ass. Like I've, you know, and I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I heard some good things about you too. So I was looking forward to you being on today with me because I've just heard a few interactions we've had from different Zooms and different things. I was looking
Oh,
forward to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew where we were headed. No, but Brennan, I said this to Mark last week. I said you had a kick-ass episode last week that I watched the whole thing. So
Oh, well, thank
I
you.
really enjoyed last week's episode. I sent that to Mark on the side.
Yeah,
So
I'm always have to carry Brandon. That's why. So I needed you to help us
That's
along
true.
today. So that's why I
That's
brought
true.
Dustin.
no, it's
Oh, should we wrap it up with this Yasi? Talk about stirring the pot. You want to read? Should I read this last question by Yasik? All right.
He's always a pot stirrer,
All
that's for
right.
sure.
So Yasik wants me to ask you guys, what do you guys think about Bitcoin?
Oh my gosh.
If you guys don't know what I'm referring to, go. I don't know if it's still there, but go check out my Facebook. There's a little discussion going back
Pot
on one of
stirrer.
my one of my not me, Yasik, one of my reels.
But you had to bring it up.
Well, I don't know Gus's thoughts. I don't know, Gus. Do you invest in Bitcoin?
before I get into. Oh no,
Oh, we
what
lost him
was
here for a second.
what was the situation?
I won't get into it. I'll send it to you offline. But
Okay.
do you invest in Bitcoin, Gus?
No, I don't. My brothers are all into that. Not really my thing.
That.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Not really
what
my
I
thing.
always say is I will not bet on Bitcoin. I actually invest in real estate that makes money multiple ways.
I'm in the same boat. And
I-
not to knock Bitcoin. I don't think it's my thing, man. I don't understand it really.
Hyder says, "Leave my golden
I
digital real estate
know.
out of it."
It's so interesting how certain people get so defensive.
All right.
I'm
Well,
comfortable. Hey, if you don't want to buy real estate, more power to you. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Doesn't bother me a bit.
any final words, Gus? I'm glad you joined us. Like I said, man, I love what you're doing. I love having you on. I'm waiting for you to connect your channel. Get your YouTube channel going.
Gotcha.
Brandon, any final words?
Nothing today. I wish hopefully next week the internet will work a little bit better. I'm going to go. Actually, I'm about to head here in a minute to go walk the 2 houses. We are almost done with rough electrical, rough plumbing. We're going to start insulation later this week. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough. I hadn't been over there, man, in about 2.5 weeks.
Good thing you
Brent,
mentioned that. Oh, go ahead, Gus.
are you on are you on Instagram?
No, I'm so I just do YouTube and that's it.
No,
Okay.
you don't. You're on Facebook also.
Well, Facebook, yeah, that's for the older group. I am on Facebook.
That's my primary social media platform.
You
So
like
Let's
Facebook
connect.
better, Gus?
Huh?
Gus,
You like Facebook better?
Well, my area likes Facebook better.
Oh,
I would think Instagram has more exposure to all over the country, but in Facebook, I got to be a little bit careful of what I post because that's most of the people
hey
in my
Gus,
area.
message me, send me your contact. Let's visit.
Okay, cool.
Good thing you mentioned that, Brandon. Let me check the schedule because Tuesday may be very early if I do it because I'm flying out that day.
Let's skip Tuesday because I've got lots going to
Okay.
get ready before we leave, so that'll make it easier on me.
All right, everyone. So you heard it. No Tuesday. I mean, maybe I'll do something from my phone and test it out. But and sorry about yesterday. Cody Davis had to cancel last minute, so we're gonna be rescheduling that for Thursday. Oh, yeah, Thursday. Me and Cody will be live streaming, and tomorrow I'll be back with Joel and Lauren, and if I can figure out someone else that wants to join us. But Gus, Brandon, thanks for doing this. This was always fun, and I'll see everyone tomorrow.